back, guys. The subject today is Illuminati vampire slayers. How about this one? When a man lies, he murders some part of the world. These are the pale deaths which men miscall our lives. All this I cannot bear to witness any longer. Cannot the kingdom of salvation take me home? James Hetfield. The Leviathan Cross. The Ouroboros and the double cross. You ever see the symbol when you're going about your day? We talk about intersectionality. Everything intersects. That's literally what the symbol of the cross represents. Intersections. There's a line drawn from every point. That's literally what the Star of David represents. We live in a web. You know, to say there's no God is to say that there is a web without a spider. It's a matrix. The spider weaves the web, but the web informs the spider. You see, the spider is the tool by which the web creates itself. Everything is intersecting and interfacing with everything else, and nothing exists in a vacuum. And I told a friend that I would elaborate on the vampire that I sometimes talk about, and we'll call him Yaldabaoth. But he has many other names. He has many other masks. We have to be very careful to understand and properly express who we're talking about here, because it's a sensitive subject for good reason. This is the front line of which the war between good and evil is waged. We must be very careful to not demonize any group of people, like Christians or Jews or Muslims. You see, we can criticize the Vatican without implicating all the Catholics. We can criticize Netanyahu without being anti-Semitic. We can criticize 9/11 hijackers without calling out the CIA. I mean Islam. No, but seriously, Osama bin Laden did work with the CIA in the 1980s and 90s. You know that, right? They created the Mujahideen together to fight the Soviets. Every empire falls around the same time they try to overtake Afghanistan and fail. Leave Afghanistan alone. They don't want white people running their affairs. It's not complicated. Why? Because the white man is the devil, okay? I'm kidding. The white man isn't the devil. But the devil is a white man. He just is. Like Jesus isn't. So what are we talking about today? Vampirism? What is it? Are vampires even real? To what extent are vampires real? If all is self, then the vampire is the Ouroboros. The vampire is an archetype. The vampires I talk about are archons. They're architects. Do they exist? Yes. By my definition of vampire is any being that sucks the life force of another being to sustain itself. The gods that require blood sacrifice are vampiric. The gods that implement slavery are vampiric. Which gods do? We don't have any gods that require burnt offerings or blood sacrifices any longer. Okay, right, really? Those are antiquated religions of the past. Are they though? Really? When 19 Islamic hijackers slam airlines into skyscrapers, you have blood and fire. Christians burn heretics to stakes. Christ himself was a blood offering to Yahweh. Circumcision and menorahs. Abraham and Isaac, blood and fire. Because humans are the only organism that need to hold flesh to fire in order to consume it. We must cook our food. What about military symbolism? You know, why do officers and soldiers wear insignias on their uniforms? Police wear pentagrams, pentacles, the Pentagon, and six-sided stars, hexagons, over their hearts and foreheads. Those are energy wheels or chakras. They mean different things and perform different functions. And I speculate that the armed forces wear those symbols because their blood mixes with the earth and the sky when they die in the line of duty, protecting their rulers' interests, which are represented by the chevron. Not the oil company, not exactly. The chevron is French for the Latin caprio, or capper, or cape In Spanish, cabra, a Latin derivative which means goat. It's a symbol for the goat. Now, what is the goat a symbol of? The devil. Okay, Baphomet. The Spanish word for vampire is chupacabra, or goat sucker, a mythical beast that sucks the blood of the working classes. The shepherd's goat in the night. That's allegorical for something. A parasitic aristocracy. A useless elite class at best, or an outright slave master at worst. Life force stealers. Okay? So, a vampire is a slave master to some degree. Humanity is a vampire. You know, that's what Billy Corgan was talking about in the Smashing Pumpkins song. The symbol, the Leviathan Cross, symbolizes the covenant that Yahweh has with Satan. Yahweh, the God of the Torah in the Old Testament, Jesus' dad. It's an Ouroboros with a double cross extending from the heart or the center of the snake. It's a serpent, right, that eats its own tail. Double cross. What does that term mean? He made a deal. He made a deal with the devil, and the symbol includes a double cross. What about the Exxon symbol? You know, another oil company's logo. Notice how the double X is represented. Is that a coincidence? I don't know, but I doubt it. You know, we can get weird with words and symbols and logos all day long. Symbols and sigils. You know, L means God. Oil is binary. The O and the I and the L. The phi plus the angular angle. It's petroleum. It's the blood of the planet. Oil and water displace one another. You know, human beings are 90% water and okay, so Yahweh made covenants with the other gods. And we only really hear about one other God. And we're made sure to understand that the other God mentioned is the devil. And is inferior in rank and stature to Yahweh. Satan is God's enforcer. We're all vampires to lesser degrees, to lesser organisms. Okay, I'm going to be focusing on who vampires on humanity. Who besides mosquitoes is sucking our blood and sustaining themselves by consuming the material produced by our metabolism. So who are the vampires, right? Because there's not just one. You ever see the Wachowski siblings movie, Jupiter Rising? That shit is theory written off as fiction. Do you know the plot? It's about aliens and Jesus and resurrection and immortality. You know, it's the hero archetypal myth, the archetype. This is interesting. Maybe you know about this. People scoring higher in certain big five personality types known as Ocean being an acronym for openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. And that's what Ocean stands for. People that score higher in openness and conscientiousness tend to lean toward different political ideologies. They tend to respond negatively to different types of archetypes. This psychological tendency is reflected in horror films. Hollywood knows what kinds of films will likely be blockbusters based on which political party is running the country at any given time. I'll tell you what I mean. Republicans, conservatives, people that hold conservative values over liberalism respond to vampires with more negative emotional traits than zombies. Why? Because who do conservatives identify with and what do they make distinctions from? You know, how do they distinguish themselves from liberals? So let's talk about the qualities of vampires and zombies. Vampires are old. They're wealthy. They're wise. They're cold-blooded and predatory. They kill their victims, but they don't die, kind of like zombies. They're cunning and calculating, not like zombies. They turn them evil by biting their neck and drinking their blood. They're the aristocracy. They're the aristocracy. They are the ruling class. They're immortal and they are superior to human beings. They're elite. They rule over nations and they feed on hapless individuals and they're, you know, sexually deviant. They're sexually energized. They're romanticized and intelligent. They garner the sympathy one might feel for an addict. You know, a monster that operates, unfortunately, of necessity. Those are the types of characteristics that liberals identify with and repel conservatives. Zombies. What are they like? They're the masses. They move in mass. They're brainless and stupid. They're the opposite of sexual. They're revolting. They're the opposite of regality. They're cannibals. They eat each other and they turn each other into zombies by biting them. They're the masses of brainless flesh eaters, consumers. Oftentimes, they're the victims of a virus or infection. Conservatives are oftentimes germophobic. You know, neither ideology has a monopoly on stupidity. See, that's how liberals and conservatives see each other. I'm talking about the conservative plebeian, the peasant. Liberals fancy the finer things. They go to the theater and they listen to classical music. They mind themselves cultured, even when they aren't particularly wealthy. They identify with higher art and culture. They're arrogant, intellectual, elitist. You know, they're above it all. They look at conservatives and think they're simpletons. They're basic bitches. They're uneducated. They're ignorant. They're backward and deplorable. They're racist and degenerate. That's how liberals see their ideological opposite. See, they respond negatively to the zombie archetype and positively to the vampire archetype. Now, look at who's generally the protagonist in zombie films. They're blue-collar, salt-of-the-earth type characters that have basic survival skills. They're resourceful. These films are allegorical of Western films in a lot of ways. The zombies are Indians. In a lot of ways, those old Western films were allegorical to the justification of manifest destiny. The evils of imperialism are projected onto the antagonist. These films are rife with symbolism. You know, in The Walking Dead, the hero is a police officer. Conservatives defer to authority. The contradictions in the ideology versus the behavior are laughable, though. I'm like, small government, theocratic, imposing, and simultaneously champion for the rights of the individual. Okay, how do conservatives see themselves and liberals? Conservatives see themselves as virtuous. What repels the vampire? The Christian cross, right? Vampires are more powerful than humans, but can't prey on us in the presence of Christ's authority. Conservative plebs resent the elites while simultaneously worshiping the elites. They worship the wealthy ruling class because they adhere or acquiesce into a social dominance hierarchy. They believe in the fantasy of meritocracy. They resent free rides and equate the jobless with the freeloader and not the trust fund baby. You know, not the inheritant. They believe it's legitimate. They see themselves as honest and hardworking folk of faith and virtue, and they see liberals as godless, hedonistic animals. You know, they're masters of mental gymnastics and contortionism. And look no further than Trump. Conservatives don't really understand psychology very well, apparently. They aren't intellectual or cerebral. They're more gut motivated. They have a hard time seeing hypocrisy and false equivalency. They resent me for speaking my mind because I use words they don't know or understand. They're insecure about their ignorance. They deny their racism because they can't even detect it in themselves. They think they're telling it like it is. But that's not how it is, though. You know, Trump's telling it how he believes you see it. He's confirming your biases. He knows what you think, and he's telling you he thinks the same things you do. He doesn't really think that. Not actually. It's not that he knows what he says is wrong, but if you believe it, he says it. It's that he doesn't really give a fuck. But he knows you do, so he says what you want to hear. Dude, he's a salesman, and not even a particularly competent one. Don't you think his rallies resemble zombies a little bit? Don't you think Hillary Clinton actually might be a blood-sucking demon that eats children? Is that a far stretch? You know, she's an archetype of what I'm talking about. A parasite within a parasite, a vampire within the Ouroboros. That symbol, you know, Leviathan's Cross. It's satanic, right? It represents the covenant that God holds with the devil. God made a deal with the devil. Why is God making deals with the devil? Because John, you know, year of your father the devil and the lust of your father you will do, etc. You don't believe in God. Okay, that's fine. I'm not arguing with you whether or not God exists. I'm telling you the devil exists. You don't believe in the devil either. Okay, fine. What about evil? Do you believe in evil? Do you believe there is such a concept of virtue? Is there no right or wrong? Now explaining this shit is easier to religious people because everything is easier to explain to religious people because what you're explaining doesn't have to be fucking true to them to believe it. They have the good and evil conflict already mapped out. The book says who good and evil. The book says who the good and bad guys are. And then the good guy tells us the difference between good and evil. And then proceeds to behave exactly like one might behave if he were actually the devil. In the beginning there was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Before the Word, it was impossible to lie. It's possible to know the truth by the lies we're told, though. Literature, poem, lyric. Fiction can be a vessel by which untruths are told, but a greater truth is understood. And I really do think that's what the Bible is doing. It's lying to us, but it's telling the truth. Jesus tells us that. By their fruits you shall know them. Okay? I'm not asking you to believe in anything. Whatever you want to call the inspiration for one person to dehumanize and then violate the autonomy and the personhood and defile them, to rape, murder, and desecrate their remains, whatever causes people to do that shit to each other, the Phoenix program, the Lucifer effect, that mentality is what I'm talking about. That mentality is what I'm going to refer to as evil for the sake of simplicity. Okay, 90% of people can agree that can be defined as evil. Now, is there a being that's responsible for it? It doesn't even really matter. I mean, there is, but it doesn't fucking matter, okay? The lord of that archetype, we'll call him Yaldabaoth. We can call him Baal or Beelzebub. We can call him the devil. The devil has 1,000 faces. To fight evil, you have to understand what it is. Most people don't actually even want to fight evil, though. They just bleat. They just bah at the banality of evil, right? Stay in their fence. What happened to the Jews is pretty well accepted that was evil. The symbols the Nazis used are occult symbols, and they mean virtuous things. They represent good. They represent God. They represent the cosmic order of things. Did the Nazis think they were evil? Fuck no, they didn't. They believed they were saving the planet from the scourge of the devil. They believed the Jews were the devil, and they believed they were the good guys. That's exactly what's happening in the United States right now. These fucking Republicans. So, slavery. The institution of slavery is a vampire. It's cold and dead and evil. It's condoned by the Bible. The Bible justifies and gives license for slavery. It details the do's and don'ts of owning human beings and forcing them to do whatever you want. Dehumanize them, rape them, degrade and debase them. Any evil shit you can think of, it's done to slaves. And is sanctioned by the Bible. Okay, maybe not sanctioned because it does say be nice to your slaves. But slavery is inherently fucking cruel and vicious. So when I talk about vampires, generally today I'm referring to the Catholic Church, but not exclusively. There is a cabal, and most of the most powerful people in said cabal happen to be Jewish. Is it an evil Jewish conspiracy? God, no. No. That ideation was the impetus behind the Holocaust. The reason Swiss banks were untouchable by the IMF, the reason the Switzerland was allowed to remain neutral during World War II, yeah, they're actually Jews, but they're actually Jews that are anti-Semitic. No, not your stereotypical self-hating Jews. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about David Ben-Gurion. You don't know who he is. He was the first prime minister of Israel. He was being interviewed, and the question was asked, and I'm paraphrasing here, but you can find it, look it up. What will become of Israel when anti-Semitism is a thing of the past? And what Ben-Gurion said just put my spirit into a quagmire. It just sunk me like a Titanic. He said there will always be anti-Semitism because it will be provoked where it is absent. It will be contrived because the identity of the Jew is dependent on the distinguishment from the Gentile, distinguished as God's chosen people. You know, what kind of division might that shit provoke? Resentment, jealousy, hatred? Yeah, probably, but, you know, have you read about their God? He's a hell of a guy. Look, I know Jews. They don't think like that. The Jews I know don't think like that. Historically, Jews have been displaced and shit on everywhere they went. The Jews didn't invade the Americas and enslave and genocide the people here. As far as I know, the Jews never committed genocide on anyone. I don't even hold the Jews responsible for Palestine any more than I hold myself responsible for any of the atrocities my own government has committed. Okay? You know, I pay taxes. My labor finances some of the most evil shit ever committed in the world. Does that make me evil? Well, I'm conscious of it, and I'm doing what I can to combat that action. Karma. You know? It's okay, even proper, to criticize oneself or family or culture. It's offensive to criticize others, though, right? Example, like, I can talk shit about my brother, but you can't. It's my responsibility to self-criticize. You know, if anybody's going to talk shit about America, it's Americans. We are the ones who need to be holding our authority to the ideals that they claim to represent for us on our behalf. You know, if you're just sitting around fucking waving flags and kissing the asses of the fucking red, white, and blue Gestapo, to me, you're not American at all. You're the antithesis of American. You're the opposite of what a patriot is. Dude, you'd be a fucking turncoat. You're a turncoat. Why don't we understand this principle? We used to. It's the very principle this nation was founded on. We've lost it. You know, we're looking for specks in the eyes of others with planks in our own. And that's why I never want to speak for anyone other than myself. But we have representatives that we elect that don't represent us. We still elect them. But, you know, maybe it's human nature. Without gay men prey on each other. No, dude. This shit's cultural. This culture, ours, is one of predation and self-preservation without self-gnosis. And that's our problem. That's our problem. You know, the whole Sam Harris, Matt Dillahunty debacle, it's common, man. That simplistic rationale to advocate for religion to stand against evil. Without God, what's to stop you from raping and murdering people? Well, first of all, religion doesn't stop that shit. In many cases, it sanctions it, it encourages it, it reconciles it. Seriously, dude. If the only thing keeping you from raping and murdering people is religion, can I maybe suggest watching A Clockwork Orange again if you haven't already?
A burly bastard. But he was very fond of myself, me being very young, and also now very interested in the big book. I read all about the scourging and the crowning with thorns, and I could vidi myself helping in and even taking charge of the toll-chocking and the nailing in, being dressed in the height of Roman fashion.
You know, what's the moral of that story? Because Malcolm, the anti-hero, whatever the fuck you want to call him, the protagonist, antagonist, he was a psychopath. And when they forced him to read the Bible, you remember that scene? His imagination went wild with it. You know, he was identifying with Jehovah. The scriptures are as depraved as he was. More so, maybe. He reveled in the rape and murder and slavery and power. You know, he was fantasizing about being a character in the stories of the Bible. He was fantasizing about whipping the Son of God. Remember that scene? He's just whipping the shit out of Jesus. That's some sublime shit right there. He was fantasizing about punishing God. Now, who among us hasn't had that fantasy if we're honest? The stories in the Bible, he was aroused by them. Are they true? Yeah, they're true enough. The stories in the Bible depict human nature to a T. Depraved and wanton. Is Yahweh a vampire? Yeah, I think so. Here's why. Everything in the universe is made up of matter. All matter is energy and stasis. Now, it can either be created or destroyed. And the obedient might say, yeah, but by humans. God isn't human. Okay, fine. But God has an image that we were created in according to the Bible. And there are other gods that Yahweh admits to in the existence of. You know, in Genesis, when he says, let us make them in our image. You know, and then you could say, well, that was a typo. It wasn't meant to be plural. Well, then you have to admit that the book isn't divine or perfect. And that God fucks up sometimes. Or that people are actually who wrote it. And they got it wrong. You know? I'm gonna assume that Yahweh considers himself God as far as humans are concerned. He only talks about Earth, though. Space is way bigger than just the Earth. And the sun and the moon, you know, the heavens. He's got a district. He's got a district in the vastness of the infinite time-space continuum. You know, it's infinite. Okay, so you could say God exists outside the universe. He exists outside of it. So what? You know, it doesn't even matter. So the question is there a higher power than us? Yeah. I mean, obviously we're not the apex in the hierarchy. Maybe it's not obvious. It's possible that we are, but it's not probable. You know, let's just take the gap between the humans. The gap between Einstein and your dumbass MAGA chud brother-in-law is epic. And that's just our species. We're more alike than we're not, and we're different as fuck. That's my point. So, is there a higher power, and does it suck our life force like a parasite? Yes. Yes. Even if it's just another human being, okay? That's why we're carnivores, omnivores, and even herbivores. We're all consuming energy, manifesting it physically, and then recycling it through our own decomposition when we're dead. Everything that's here has always been here and always will be. The Bible is a slave owner's manual and a blueprint on how to go from slave to king. That's what it is. It describes our reality by the epochs. It informs our psychology, gods and slaves. You know, what is symbolized by pyramids, dominance hierarchies, war, human on human violence. You know, what about that? What does the Bible say about it? It says it's wrong, except for when it's not. Except for when you're ordered to by an elite, an elite. You know, you don't think you're a slave still. You're programmed for denial, my dude. You are genetically programmed. The Bible tells you as much, and it's evident. It's not obvious though. They don't tell you in so many words. It's up to you to figure it out. So you can throw the Bible away and just disregard it. You know, many bright people do. But you cannot deny that it informed our culture and civilization and society, though. It did. You know it did. I don't care what you believe in. Your culture was informed by Abraham and Alexander. We believe what we're told by those that know but don't tell the whole truth. You see, because if we all had the same knowledge, then there wouldn't be a fucking pyramid. The pyramid on your dollar bill wouldn't exist. The social dominance hierarchy wouldn't exist. Oh yeah? I'll explain lobsters then. Okay. Fuck. Here we go. Here we go. That's the foundation of the whole lobsters prove hierarchies are inherent argument. Yes, all other organisms arrange themselves into hierarchies. That's an element of the Ouroboros program, though. What about bees? They have a hive collective. So what? Not all operating systems work the same way because they aren't interested in doing the same things. A human isn't a wolf or an eagle or a bee or a fucking lobster, which is just like a fucking cockroach of the sea, by the way. A human is an evolved monkey or an alien primate hybrid, depending on the theory you fancy subscribe to. People always say, okay, but what do you believe? I don't even know what that's supposed to mean. What do I believe? I try not to reduce my view to belief. I'm not really interested in belief. I want to know. I'm not going to claim anything that I can't see any real or clear evidence of. That's not the same thing as proof, though. See what I mean? You really can't prove anything. I can't prove to you that I'm not a figment of your imagination. Descartes. You see what I mean? Vampires are real. Are they real? They exist in the animal kingdom. We call them ticks and leeches. We call them ticks and leeches. A vampire is a word I used to describe pedophile priests. Okay? Nobody questions their existence or culpability. So let's talk about two historical figures that are attributed to being the inspiration of vampirism. Countess Elizabeth Bathory. She was a countess that tortured and murdered at least 650 young maidens, young virgin servants, that were around Jeffrey Epstein's preferable age. She's been said to bathe in the blood of virgin girls as a way to retain her youth. The other day, I read about a company that was reportedly charging $8,000 to transfuse the blood of teenagers into the wealthy and geriatric, the decrepit, because young blood seems to reverse the effects of aging. They're calling it the vampire molecule. It's found in the plasma of younger people. For some reason, it reverses aging. This is the future of vampirism and stealth sem medicine. To propel the wealthy into biological immortality. Never forget that we're human resources to the elites, the elites. The elites are the devotees of El. That's what that word means. El meaning the. It also means God. That's where we get the terms theocracy, theology. It means God, the. I think we talked about this earlier. So, we know where these predators are going. They're going into the future. Where do they come from? The past. The other historically significant vampire figure was Vladimir Dracul III, also known as Vlad the Impaler. Okay, Dracula means the son of Dracul, ruler of late 15th century Romania, Transylvania, the inspiration of the vampire Dracula, and where we get the term draconian. Dracul means dragon. Dracula means the son of the dragon, or the son of the devil, the war god, Huitzilopochtli. Remember that? Remember him from the Aztec pantheon? Blood sacrifices to the sun, blood and fire. The tongue in the center of the Aztec calendar. The sun is a vampire. The world is a vampire. All symbolic of Oedipus. The Titans, the gods above God. Okay? Saturn, Kronos, Satan, year of your father, the devil. Dracul belonged to the Order of the Dragon, which was an order whose statutes were symbolized by the Ouroboros. The bottom part of the Leviathan's cross, that satanic symbol. It's satanic. It originated from the Rosicrucians. Rosicrucian, meaning the rosy cross, red cross. That's where the red cross came from. Who were begat by the Knights Templar, the Knights of the Temple, and the Knights Malta, who still exist today in the Catholic Church, the ranks of the Catholic Church, that were beset by Constantine, the Christian order that murdered the original Christians, the original usurpers of Christianity. You see, both societies were secret for a time. Just because it's secret doesn't mean it's evil. They're secret for different reasons. Think the real life Jedi in the movies, in Star Wars. That's Jedi and the Sith, two different secret orders. Secret societies don't always exist in the shadows to plot evil. Sometimes they're in hiding from an evil authority. The trick is discerning one from the other, because they swap roles depending on who holds power for too long enough to be corrupted by it. And it's inevitable. It's always corrupted. It always is. You know, the Republic was corrupt, and thus sprung forth the Empire. Now the Empire is corrupt, and now you got the rebellion. So that's how the Illuminati began as a secret society that exists to be in the service of humans, and ultimately to become corrupted and evil. You know, Lucifer, same idea. Lucifer was a hero that was slandered by the dominant corrupt culture, but whose name is becoming ever more redeemed. You know, nowadays, Lucian Greaves, he's leading a new revival. This is precisely why Jesus told you to judge them by their fruits. Don't listen to them. You know, look at what they're doing. Believe me, I'll tell you, because I don't give a fuck about my reputation, obviously. These are theories of mine. I'm trying to change my mind. I'm telling you now that if I hold the same opinions on what I theorize today in 10 years, then I've failed. I've learned nothing. You see, you change your mind when you learn. And the point is to always learn. It's okay to be wrong. It's stupid to be loyal to error. Error is part of the solution, though. You know, it's part of the process. Loyalty isn't a virtue. Loyalty is stubbornness. And when you're honest, loyalty is a vice. It's a devotion to error. You see what I'm saying? When you're committed to truth, then loyalty to another person is betrayal of the truth. If all that other person wants or accepts of you is honesty, though, then loyalty is a byproduct. You're loyal by default because you're involved in genuine relationships, healthy relationships, symbiotic relationships, and not parasitic ones. You know, when you know, you don't have to believe. Belief is what we claim without knowing. Also, it's better to know that you don't know the truth than to believe you do. So, let me ask you, do you believe in extraterrestrials? Do you believe in ET? Do you believe in God? Do you suppose it's possible that God is an ET? The Mormons do. The Mormons believe if they don't drink coffee or jerk off and cover their assholes and genitalia with the sacred underwear and pay the tithing, that someday God will let them be gods too. You know, talk about the sacred and profane. Tell me. Tell me the Mormons don't know that their sacred garments are contaminated with shit, blood, and cum every night and day. They know. Believe me, they know. That's the point. The matriarch of the family sees that shit and disposes of it, cleanses it. What the elites, the elders believe is that they are slaves that can and will become gods, rule over their own planet like Jehovah does. You believe that? Are they delusional? Yeah. Yeah, maybe. Maybe not, though. You know, if you told me 20 years ago that I would hold a computer in my pocket that does what it does, I might have thought you were delusional. What always happens, invariably, is that my belief is brought to question. You know, what do I believe? Dude, I really don't believe in anything, okay? I can't prove anything. I can't prove that you aren't a figment of my imagination. I can't prove that I'm not the only thing that exists. We can't prove we aren't in Matrix battery farms. That's kind of the fucking keystone of modern philosophy. You know, I'm not really trying to convince you of anything. Why would I? Why would I even try to convince you of something? Because I want you to agree with me? Dude, I don't want you to agree with me. I'm not looking for validation, okay? I want to challenge the way you think about things and see things so we can both inform and learn from one another. I don't want people to agree with me because if everyone agrees with me, then my perspective would be average. Okay, think about this. If I wanted you to agree with me, I'd just tell you obvious shit that you wouldn't deny, like the sky is blue. You know, nobody would give a shit about my opinion then. It was just obviously true. water's wet. Ooh. Chris tells it like it is. No. You say someone tells it like it is when they say things you understand and you agree with. Okay? Now think about this. If you're stupid, then when someone says stupid shit, you say, they tell it like it is. I'm trying to elevate the foundation. Rise the tide to lift all boats. Not because I'm virtuous. I'm annoyed by stupidity. I want to make understanding standard for everyone because it makes my life suck less. My life is significantly better when people are less stupid. And that's not to say that I'm not stupid. I am. I'm demonstrably stupid. You know, what's the stupidest idea I believe? You want me to fucking confess? You want to know the stupidest thing that I believe? I believe that people will realize the Democrats and Republicans are colluding against us. I believe that the people, when they find out the political party paradigm is just as fucking contrived and fabricated as wrestling is, that they'll stop participating in it. That they'll evolve. That's the dumbest fucking thing I believe. Why do I believe it? Like when it's demonstrably not the case. I don't know, is it? I know the World Wrestling Federation's entertainment shit still exists and people still watch it even though they know it's fake. That's what I fear. I fear that people will still fucking engage in our political circus even when they know it's bullshit. I fear that's already happening. You know another stupid thing I believe in? People. It's pretty stupid. You know, what do people believe? What we believe in is why believing in us is stupid. I believe in people because that's the only thing that gives me any kind of hope. Okay? Because I'm a person. And I quote the Bible a lot. And people assume I believe what the Bible says because I quote it. But it says different things to different people and it contradicts itself all the time. So if you cherry pick it, literally anyone can apply it to their life. And it dovetails with reality, you know, in human psychology, at least as far as civilizations are concerned. I'm saying we need to understand the Bible and believe in one another and not the opposite. It'd be nice if we could do both. Hope to understanding one another is eventual, but first we have to understand and know ourselves. Okay, so that's why I emphasize so much on self-gnosis, because until we do that, then we can't know each other, and then we live in a paradigm of fear and desire, and we can do better than that. And we will eventually, but I'd like to expedite the process for my own benefit because I enjoy my time better. Right? It makes my job easier. There's more there's more to our reality than we can humanly perceive. And we're on the precipice of physically achieving what used to be relegated and confined to speculative metaphysics. The vampires I'm talking about. I hate to say this. I really, really do. Believe me. But the vampires that I talk about, they're the hyperdimensional demons that Alex Jones talks about when he rants against the globalist kid fucker networks. You really have to be careful how you talk about who rules the world. You know, it's that old saying, figure out how you're not allowed to criticize and you'll know who rules over you. The identity or faith of the ruling class isn't really that important. You know, I want to know what happened before the Old Testament. I want to know what was going on here before our history got whitewashed and we were told all the bullshit about God and Eden and the Levant. You know, I want to know who the father of the lies is. That's what I want to know. It's a lie that's been kept secret for thousands of years. If you know how vampires operate, that's how I suspect the gods operate. Hidden away. They embed themselves into the population and they're reclusive. They're as mad as I am. meaning they're insane. The existential crisis, the midlife crisis, has a different resonance and implication when you're immortal. You have a midlife crisis every day because you live in the eternal present. All right? So, I mean, it's worse. Who was the first vampire? Cain. You know, the legacy of Cain would have you believe so. I don't believe it. The first liar in the book of Genesis wasn't the snake. Who was it? It's just a story, though. Is it retrospective? Yeah. Because God was made in our image. It's also retroactive, not the other way around. Sorta. You know, it's the chicken and egg thing. Webs create spiders to manufacture webs, to create spiders. Man creates gods in order to manufacture man. You know, Solomon is probably a figure you want to study, as well as Zarathustra. These are the oldest archetypes we know of, that we're told about anyway, to the extent we're told about anything significant at all. It's really not. Behind the Zion curtain, it all reduces down to three basic principles: energy, positive and negative, and consciousness. Negative and positive energy cannot coexist in the same time and space, but they require one another to triangulate the third, to become the one. You know, that's what's up. We're stuck with each other forever. So we gotta learn to live with each other and love each other. That's why Jesus told you to love your enemy, you motherfucker. Anyway. So the vampire is a miser. The vampire is one that procrastinates the inevitable indefinitely. The vampire hates its relationship with life, but fears death more. The vampire is an archetype. The vampire is an archetype of the human being and the god that exemplifies our wretched and parasitic existence. The Ouroboros. The vampire is the irredeemable king that becomes corrupted. You know, yesterday's hero that lived long enough to become the villain in his own story because it refuses to die. It refuses to die because it's afraid. The bringer of death and the denier of it. The liar. To transcend this, one must be one that love so seemingly denies. You know, by their fruits you will know them. There is no shortage of liars here. A liar is one who feeds off the energy and power, the momentum of the truth. Okay? There's really nothing magical about it unless you eat some mushrooms and then everything's magical and you're transformed and transfigured. You are, not the world. You see what I mean? When you take sacramental compounds, you change. The world is always magical. It's you that changes. So keep that in mind. If you want to know the truth about vampires, you need to look inward. Where do they lie? They lie in your shadow, your Jungian shadow, your dark heart. You look at yourself from outside into what you're hiding from yourself, and you see it, and you can't hide from it. You see, you're naked in the Garden of Eden. That's what that symbolizes. That's what that represents. After eating of the tree of knowledge, you know your vulnerabilities, the nakedness, the nudity. You're exposed now. It's real. You're vulnerable and naked inside to yourself, to God, and to the fucking beast, the devil. You know, your instinct tells you to hide. It tells you to deny it. But, you know, shame weighs down your gaze. What are you ashamed of? What you found in the cavity of your soul? Why? What are you ashamed of? That you took a misstep in order to find what you were looking for? You fucking didn't succeed right away? You know, you made mistakes in order to learn? What was the lesson? What were you lessoned and taught by? You see, the words lesson and taught have two definitions. You know, lesson to diminish and taught to make the fucking string taut. They mean the same thing. When you're too tight, a lesson makes you taut. That, you're in tuned then. You're attuned, attoned, at one. So, dude, they're magic spells. Okay. If I could do it to any word you want. Words are worlds and words are swords. Yeah. No. I hope I'm giving you the toolkit that you can use to dismantle any word and figure out all the meanings that it means and how they intersect, because it works like constellations. It's amazing. It's fascinating. Dude, it will keep you so engaged in this reality if you learn how to do that. It's so much fun. And you become a magician or a musician. So, when I was there in that position, feeling stupid, ashamed, and humiliated, my higher self told me, he was like, what are you going to do when someone else does something this shameful, stupid, or humiliating? And I learned. I learned what I'm going to do. I'm going to relate with them. I'm going to understand them because I am them. And that's right. That's what you're going to do. You're going to relate with them and help them grow and develop and evolve and make them feel like they aren't the sum total of their past. That's how you kill the vampire. You tell the truth. Evil's seed are in lies. It centers around disrespecting life, parasiting other people's energy, abusing what's less powerful than you are. Fear. It's all motivated by fear. Try to resist the temptation to judge others as inferior, because believe me, motherfucker, you will be humbled. You will be humbled. And when it's possible, surround yourself with people that are more adept and competent than you are. You'll learn more quickly, and you'll learn more broadly, more importantly. And how do I know? Because I've learned everything the hard way. I've been stupid. I've been dumb. I'm not anymore. If you feel like you're a dumbass, if you feel stupid, there's hope for you. Because we're all more alike than we aren't. I'm being as real with you as I can be. If you've known me long enough, you know how fucking dumb I've been and what's possible. Dude, the secret is curiosity and humility. Be curious and humble. Move about the world as if you don't know anything. You know less than nothing. And then ask yourself if what you're being told and taught is true, if it makes sense, if it's useful, if it's helpful. I'm trying to explain why kindness and empathy are long-term the most intelligent and selfish traits you can develop. There's nothing wrong with being selfish if it's you that I want. There's nothing worse than being the strongest link in a weak chain. That shit leads to resentment, and that resentment leads to bullying and abuse, and it's just an operation. It operates out of ignorance and fear, and it weakens and corrupts the entire world. And if you think I'm exaggerating, I'm not. Something has to change for change to change. And it isn't going to be the world. It has to be you and me. It has to be us. So let's be the change we want to see in the world. Let's be a cliche. And let's take it day by day, okay? Until next week. Thank you.